I hate being embarrassed and I hate being in any kind of uncomfortable moment. But to act it out feels like and have total control of it is very cathartic. I feel like I'm kind of drawn to that.
I always feel like a step behind how normal people act and trying to like catch up. Then it's like when I get to perform, it's fun to, there's like a power in being like, I want to make everyone feel this like unease.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Colin Burgess and Anthony Oberbeck star in the independent film Dad and Stepdad. They sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. Dad and Stepdad is a very special film for me. I'm starting to realize that comedy is almost like a, let's get really pretentious here for a second. It's almost like when somebody's listening to a singer, and most of the time there is a forgiveness because the singer is out of tune. And then every once in a while they're right in tune and you're loving it. And then it's just a matter of how often the singing is in tune, and that's how much you enjoy it. That's how I feel like comedy for me. Most comedy is like, it's slightly out of tune for me all the time. Every once in a while, something is perfect, and I forgive all the other times. But I hate forgiving. It's too much effort. And lately, a lot of comedy is just me forgiving for most of the off moments. Dad and Stepdad, I feel like it's perfectly tuned. There's not a lot of forgiveness that has to happen in there. And I want to spend a lot of time here to find out why, how this happened, and what went into the whole process of this to get this, what I consider like a really well-tuned symphony of comedy. But I would like to start by just each one of you. I want to know what you were interested in, even when you were young, when it comes to comedy, and how that has changed. I almost feel like, if this was cast by other great comic actors, it would be a whole different movie. So there's something that is in you guys that made this special. I want to figure out what that comedy road is that led to this. And we'll start with Colin.
I think it was just watching movies with my dad. Just comedy movies. Airplane was huge. I have the VHS still that we would watch, and it's. I watched it recently in VHS. When you rewind part of the VHS a lot, it degrades more.
Yeah.
So I can tell what parts we would be rewinding all the time.
That's funny.
And I also rewatched Young Frankenstein recently, and a lot of it was weirdly got into Dad and Stepdad, maybe, or like the same energy, which was, it feels like a lot of the jokes stemmed from the performances themselves, and that they were allowing sort of like that energy into the movie instead of like
Interesting.
just
the writing.
It didn't. The writing didn't feel like the thing that makes it
right
funny to me.
That's
and
interesting.
Also the big thing I noticed with Young Frankenstein, and in general that I think I find funniest, is Young Frankenstein has a lot of reaction shots, and the laugh. I saw it at Vidiots recently, and the laughs a lot of times are on the reaction shot, not on the actual punchline. So I think that sort of informs my comedy.
Yeah.
I find the reaction to a joke maybe funnier than a joke often.
I've thought about, I don't know if I've said it out loud to you guys talking about it, but thinking about how Dad and Stepdad, I feel like if there is a punchline to a joke, like a verbal punchline, that's not the actual punchline.
Yes.
The punchline is the silence after, like it's the pained silence afterwards. So even if there's like a couple moments where there's a setup, and then one of us says something that's like gets a laugh.
Yeah.
But there's like maybe 2 moments like that.
Yeah.
And for the most part, if there is like setup punchline, it's like a fake punchline where really all of that is the setup, and then the silence is the actual punchline to the joke.
Yeah. Because our characters are trying to joke all the time, but they're not very funny.
I guess that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
They don't have that good of sense of humor.
I rewatched The Beekeeper by Theo Angelopoulos lately, and I realized, because that movie is not necessarily meant to be funny, and I realized in watching that, and then that made me think back to like, I think like Eraserhead is the other big example I can think of, where it's like Eraserhead's maybe meant to be a little funnier, but I think a huge influence on comedy for me was like movies like that are like absurdist, almost serious, but it's like there's a lot of moments in that movie. It's about a very alienated middle-aged man that can't connect with the world. And there's a lot of moments where like he picks up this teenage girl that's a hitchhiker, and she's like provoking him, and he's just like completely deadpan, not reacting. Like there's a scene where he's sitting on the bed morosely, and she's like, I'm going to go out. And he like doesn't react. And she's like, I'm going to get drunk. And he like doesn't react. And she's like, can I have some money? And he doesn't say anything. And then she just like reaches in his pocket and takes money out. And the whole time he's just like staring into the void and I was like, that is the funniest thing to me.
Yeah. So Anthony's the weirder one.
Yeah, I'm the weirder one. The biggest influence on my comedy is the moment in Eraserhead where when he sees the baby for the first time, and it's like the most horrifying thing you've ever seen, and then it cuts to his reaction, and it's the most muted response where you like, it's the reveal of this sick baby, and then it goes to him and he just goes like, oh, you are sick, aren't you? to me, like a non-response to something insane is the funniest thing.
Right. And where did you guys come together? Did you guys come together before these shorts?
A little bit.
Well, we were friendly.
We had
a few conversations.
I started out in Chicago, and I did a lot of improv and sketch comedy there.
Uh-huh.
And then I was there for about 9 years, and then moved to New York. And Colin, I think you moved to New York the year before me.
I moved in 2013.
I moved in 2014.
Right. And I was doing pretty much exclusively stand-up in Rochester and Buffalo, where I was going to college.
Uh-huh.
And it was like me and maybe 2 or 3 other people doing something that maybe qualified as weird or alt. And then the rest were like guys in their 40s, like talking about a DUI they got on stage. And the open mics were really brutal.
Wow.
And kind of sad. Right before I went to my first open mic, I read all of Born Standing Up by Steve Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm just going to do that. Because that felt most naturally to me. I liked bits.
And were you both acting in comedy films at this time before you met Tynan? How did he get involved with you guys, and had you come together and make these shorts?
I met Tynan like kind of early into me moving to New York, because he was performing stand-up and he was doing bits. He was we were bit boys together.
Yeah, bitting it up.
Loved doing the bits. and we both like pretty early on like figured out like, oh, we like film, and or at least we started out like we want to do like video stuff. We want to film sketches or something. We knew that we were both interested in that. So we filmed a few sketches that are, in hindsight, I don't really like anymore, maybe, or find as funny. But then it started slowly like morphing into like more like narrative, character-based stuff, which I think he kind of was like pushing for first. He was very interested in that, and then we started making more stuff that was kind of like that.
He
like
was
found footagey stuff of like guys being competitive or idiots or something.
Yeah, I think he was gravitating towards, like, we were all part of the same comedy community, and he was gravitating towards directing and wanting to make shorts and movies and stuff. I think all of us sort of, that's where we were. I started comedy when I moved to Chicago. I wanted to write and direct movies, and I'd never acted and never thought I would act or perform in any way. And then through being in Chicago, just through trying to like meet people and become part of the stand-up scene or the comedy scene, like fell into performing at improv theaters. And by the time I left, was mostly performing and had sort of like let writing, directing fall by the wayside.
Interesting.
And then in New York, was doing sketch comedy and improv, and that was sort of morphing into like performing on camera more, just because there's more on camera opportunities there. And yeah, Tynan was gravitating towards directing. I think something that attracted me to Tynan is like he gets the comedy and the absurdity, and he lets things be as dumb and funny as they want to be, but he never looks down on the characters. Like he's able to like, I really liked that everything he made, it's like everything he makes is sort of the performers bringing what they bring, like what they do anyway. And he just sort of lets you do what you do, and like he maintains a respect for the characters in a way that he's always like, he lets us be the dad and stepdad characters as dumb as it wants to go, but then is like, he just always is like at the end, like can still see the humanity, and is like, we still treat them with respect and like always give them a chance to be looked at as like real people.
Yeah. And it's just, he's very collaborative in general.
Yeah.
Because he kind of, and also just being, us all being in a community and him being very familiar with what everybody does.
Yeah.
He was very smart to figure out like how to sort of place people.
And cultivate that.
So with dad and stepdad, it was like, we kind of knew each other, and we were kind of all, you and Tynan were good friends.
Yeah, we were.
I didn't know you guys that well, but I was like, these are guys that like, I want to, like, they're doing similar stuff, and I want to be like part of that crew.
And I was editing a lot of the videos and shorts at first. Because I had sort of, I taught myself editing in college because I wanted to make videos, and I didn't know anybody that would shoot or edit these videos. So I just taught myself. And then slowly, like I would edit with Tynan, and then Tynan got the hang of it really quick. And
we were all gravitating towards like, our sensibility works best as telling stories and like acting
Yeah.
stuff out. And so I wanted to work with these guys, and I was like, I asked Tynan if he wanted to direct something with me, Colin, and Brian Fittiment, just as a way to work with them. And we just kind of like, I just was like something easy and casual that we could like improvise and shoot in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And I think just like, just for the sake of like almost like a non-plot, not to complicate it, was just like, what about just like a dad and stepdad?
Instant conflict, instant.
Yeah.
Right.
No like weird premise, just sort of like a human.
All you need to know is like one of them is the dad, one of them is the stepdad. And it's already built in all this conflict already there, right?
Yeah.
Or potential conflict is already there, or it's like preceding them when they walk in. It's like,
Well, one of the things we all said, I think the only thing we planned out before the first shoot is like no jokes. Like don't go for any like typical, like we're not doing Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Like we're not doing jokes. We're like really, I think I was like, it could be a 3-minute thing where we don't even say any, like it just really is like,
I think like pretty immediately tonally we knew what we wanted to attempt. And then I think we're kind of like, let's not plan anything really, other than we know that we're these characters. Brian's playing a 13-year-old. One of us the dad is, and one of us is a stepdad, which is something in hindsight we realized we never actually decided. So in the original short, Anthony and I both think we're the dad.
There's a moment if you go back and watch where we do the bit where it's like, you have more fun with dad or like dad or stepdad. But when we say dad, we each point to ourselves, and when we say stepdad, point to the,
which we didn't notice until when
we were editing.
And then,
but that was like 3 or 4 hours at Colin's apartment, and we just purely improvised. We had one lav mic that we would sort of share, and it really was just like whoever's not mic'd, try to like project
or try to just remember what you said the last time, so that you'll get to the same.
Or if you can find a way to cheat, having your head like closer to the other guy's chest. And we shot like,
I think there's even a part where we move up the couch and chairs closer to each other.
I just saw it. Yes.
That also was just like the physical comedy of it was. That felt like I wonder if I'm trying to think of a specific, it almost feels like a Tati thing, but I feel like there's
putting the beer in the middle.
Yeah.
I think I knew would be a funny,
I think
like physically.
Like a moment. I'm trying to think of, there might be a movie where there is someone just dragging a chair.
Sounds familiar.
For like a long time, and all you hear is just the like screech.
That is like a Tati
like it's
thing,
like an insane, just like.
But this brings up a point of what I think is really special about this movie, which is this restraint in the comedy. You know what I mean? Like knowing now that this was a decision from the beginning of like, we're not going to lay this out as jokes. We're not going to lean on the comedy or push the absurdity. All of this feels very well tuned together, like, which I find fascinating because, you know, I have somebody that I think is funny who's a frequent collaborator of mine, but I can't work with them anymore because they always go a little bit above what I want it to be. You know what I mean? Like they always push it a little bit into that space where, again, I'm using the analogy of like it's out of tune there, you know what I mean? And it feels in tune for him at that moment because that's comedy to him. I can't imagine a situation like what you guys are describing where you get together and you're perfectly in tune about how this should be. And I think that is what makes it special. But is this just a matter of like sometimes things got like that, but they're just not in the movie? Or is it that you guys were really on the same page about this?
I think so. With the analogy of sort of being in tune, or like, I kind of look at it almost as like balance or something,
Yes.
where because we have a 30-year-old man playing a 13-year-old boy, to make that funny in my mind is you have to play it as straight and sort of authentic as possible,
Right.
to balance out how absurd that is visually, in a way.
Yes.
So I think that's even kind of like the basis of the formula that we're doing, is like everything has, like, we kind of wanted everything to feel as grounded as possible so that that's funnier almost in a way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That, I feel like if there's anything I could say definitively that I know about comedy, like improv, like what I learned from just doing improv on stage for so long, is that when people are trying to be funny, it's kind of lame. Like when you can see that someone's trying to like wink to the audience of like, I'm saying a clever thing, or like you're trying to make a joke, is kind of like everyone goes, yeah, you're trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
And if you just 100% put your energy into being like, the only thing I want to do is play this as real as possible, and you just let yourself talk, and you just treat any weird thing that you accidentally say almost as like an annoyance, that it's like, fuck, I said a funny thing that people are gonna laugh, and now I have to even like push harder to be like, no, like forget, don't laugh at that. Like, like you have to make it a game with yourself to just be like, I'm actually trying to do a dramatic performance, and it sucks that I accidentally keep saying weird things that are funny, and I do that.
It's tragic.
Yeah. And that's like the same. Yeah, it's like if there's just a weird element, the way to make it really funny is to just be like, double down on like, no, like this is serious.
And I feel like the more absurd something is, the more you have to sort of treat it kind of authenticity or something.
Yeah, tonally the movie, I mean, we'd done 3 shorts.
Right.
They were always pretty tonally consistent, I feel like. Maybe earlier on we were trying sometimes to like go for a joke a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Like there was a little more experimentation, but by the time we made the feature, I feel like we all knew the tone and knew how to do this so well.
Yeah.
Like when we watched the cut scenes or like any like alt takes or anything, it all, like all of it could fit in the movie. Mm-hmm. It just is for time we took it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was like, redundant in some way.
Yeah.
So those shorts really paid dividends to get you guys on the right page when you actually spent these 4 days just doing this feature then, right? So this was not like because someone might say, oh, we're going to redo some of this stuff that we already did. Is it going to feel stale going back over it? But you almost had the opposite effect where you know how to hit this now, right?
Yeah, I think what I've been saying is, well, it's both part of the reason why we decided, like Tynan really wanted to, he was feeling like, I really want to make a feature. I want to do something that's long. And I sort of pitched Dad and Stepdad because I was like, we should do something that, like, if you're going to do an undertaking like that, maybe it should be something we're very comfortable, like something we already know what it is. And we already had sort of a bank of ideas that we had planned for maybe another Dad and Stepdad, couple more Dad and Stepdad shorts or something. But in hindsight, having gotten into Mike Lee, I realized we kind of accidentally did his process
Yeah.
without knowing it,
Yeah.
which was from the beginning, we just assigned ourselves characters and didn't think beyond that and just let a scene play out and figured out who we were based off of the performance alone. And then from there, wrote around sort of a real chemistry and a real, this is really the way Anthony and I interact, kind of.
There's a lot of luck, I think, in that all of it lends itself to, like, yeah, for one, us not being quite sure who the characters are and figuring out as we go does, I think, then on camera ring true as two people. Like, that's what you do in real life. Someone you don't know that well is sort of figure out, how do I want to present myself? Or like,
Yes.
who am I?
You're always performing,
That's what
especially
you're
with,
doing around
with
someone.
somebody
Yeah,
you don't
it's
feel
figuring out,
comfortable with too.
who am I
Yeah.
with this person is the same as like, what is
Yeah.
my character? And then, yeah, also just being like at the perfect intersection of close enough friends to have fun and trust each other,
Yeah.
but also still not so close that we can still like surprise like we still are sort of like feeling each other out on in front of the camera and like surprising each other a little bit.
That's really cool.
And also just are naturally different guys.
Yeah.
Right.
The same but different.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Same but different.
So it's weird.
That should have been the tagline. Same but different.
Also, that for a moment I was like, this is also a funny dad and stepdad moment. Where we're saying the same thing, but as if we each are like thinking of it. Yeah, the same but different.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like
Right.
the same but different. Yeah, like we're the same guy, but
So I just saw Free Time the other day.
Yeah.
And this has a very similar approach and tone. And I would have thought it's made by the same group of people. You know what I mean? Like but it's not, right? It's not.
No.
So was this something else coming from your brain, Colin, or is this just happens to be fitting in tonally just by chance?
This, I did not write Free Time, but
Interesting.
Free Time was written with me in mind, which was very cool.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of work that I didn't have to do.
Yeah.
No, it's written directed by this guy, Ryan Martin Brown, and we had just met each other kind of through No Budge. Like we had been familiar with each other and seen each other at screenings. And then his friend, Justin Zuckerman, who is also producer on Free Time, directed a movie called Yelling Fire in an Empty Theater. And he cast me probably based off of Dad and Stepdad or something.
one of the shorts.
One of the shorts
Yeah.
that I did with Tynan. And we just met through that. And then in the middle of lockdown, he sent me an email that was just like, would you want to shoot a feature? And he sent me the script. He's like, I wrote this with you in mind.
Nice.
I've been watching a lot of Albert Brooks movies. Or it's based off of, like the vibe is Albert Brooks. They shot like Robert Altman, Eric Romer.
Yeah.
And it was truly like a perfect like moment to receive that. And I had just, because I think also Criterion had all the Albert Brooks movies and I rewatched them all.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason during lockdown, I had watched The Heartbreak Kid like 5 or 6 times on YouTube. And just reading the script, I was like, oh, this is like this is sort of like a Charles Grodin, like Albert Brooks and Heartbreak Kid, like indecisiveness is like a big part of this movie.
Right.
Or uncertainty. And also a little bit of the character is a little bit of a villain in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think also maybe it kind of feels, I've been anyone who's reviewed either of these movies has used the term cringe comedy. That's sort of naturally where my sense of humor kind of falls, or
Mm-hmm.
I like
But you don't.
uncomfortable acting out uncomfortable moments.
But you don't play into the tropes of that comedy, and because I
Right.
would turn it off. I'm a British Office memorizer and Curb and everything, but I feel like what has happened with that stuff is there's a trope to it. There's a way to act
Yeah.
uncomfortableness, and you avoid those cliches in your performance, and that I'm assuming that has to just be coming out of kind of evolving past stuff like that through all the work you do with improv stuff and all this other stuff, even stand up. You're just evolving it and kind of not landing on these old tropes, right? I mean, you can enjoy that comedy, but you can also get tired of playing it that way because
Yeah.
it's kind of old.
I think I also just I've thought about it a lot, and I feel like I'm almost like acting out of fear. Like I hate being embarrassed, and I hate being in any kind of uncomfortable moment. But to act it out feels like, and have total control of it, is very cathartic.
Interesting.
So I feel like I'm kind of drawn to that. And I also just like performance wise, like reacting. I think I naturally also am like that, maybe. Just kind of reacting with Anthony. If we were those characters, I think I would kind of react that way.
Yeah.
To him.
There's like a power in silence
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because I always, like, even on stage was very attracted to like really long pauses, and I would almost be in Chicago like known for like how long I could sit in a silence. Like,
You were known for that.
well, people not known for like this guy can sit in silence forever, but like I think if people were to describe what I did, like people would be like,
Yeah.
it's often very like silent and like long tension.
Yeah.
And I think because I similarly in real life feel out of step with the way people behave. And I always feel like a step behind how normal people act, and trying to like catch up. Then it's like when I get to perform, it's fun there's like a power in being like, I want to make everyone feel this like unease. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the same tension and unease. Like I'm like, I want to make everyone aware of that and then like work through it in a cathartic way.
Mm-hmm. So tell me if I'm crazy. I might be. So you could say it, or if I'm overthinking this. But right now, the indie film world feels really bleak in terms of distribution, in terms of financing, in terms of just everybody just going to see these superhero movies or whatever, and how no one wants to go see things. But it feels almost like, because of this little tour that Dad and Stepdad just went on, and how it came to my attention, it feels like when something like this comes around, that there's like this word of mouth happening, and this little tour that happened, and now it's coming on streaming, and it might be showing up in a couple other places. It feels like there's a buzz about it that feels like it gives me hope for some things. Like it feels like people maybe might be more interested in it because there's this buzz going around and this good word. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, am I delusional about this? If that is true, and there is this buzziness and this kind of word of mouth thing going around, I mean, this is an exciting moment, because it feels like this is the kind of thing where people are going to be like wanting to go and see this with people, even when it's streaming. Like people are going to want to get together and watch it and share it. And that feels like that's hopeful for indie film. I mean, it's not just a good film; it had an interesting rollout, And I was just wondering if all of this was conscious and how you guys are feeling about that.
I feel like we accidentally did everything wrong, but it's starting to work.
We accidentally did everything wrong, and then we accidentally did everything right.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, we fucked up. Oh, we haven't been cussing.
Oh,
And
fuck.
you said, yeah, we got to make up for it. You said we can cuss, and we got to make
Pile them up.
Well, we fucking
Ass.
we tried to get this fucking movie into festivals because that's what the fuck you're supposed to do. The movie,
Yeah.
and I think just one, and we talked about this. We fucking talked about this, and we were like, the beginning of the movie, it takes so long before, like, you have to watch it to the end to see that it's something beyond us fucking around in a living room with a video camera.
Yeah.
And we said, should we try and tighten the beginning to be like a traditional like 10 minutes and then it kind of takes off? And we were like, no, it should be like we should be fucking what we think it should be. But I think that hurt us because festival programmers would watch. That's my guess, is that they would watch the first 10 minutes and be like, oh, this is just some guy's like riff in the living room. And it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, the whole festival, and there's like, you have to know the right people, and then you got to do it in the right order so that it like gets on it. And we did all the politics of the festivals wrong and didn't get into anything.
Yeah, we actually made a lot of enemies with programmers.
Excellent.
But then we were like, what do? We got to get it out there ourselves. And we cut a trailer and like just to get people excited.
It's
and then
an exceptional trailer.
And it went viral.
That was edited by our producer, Graham Mason.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
Great. Yeah.
Great trailer. And it went viral, I guess, on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the first thing we accidentally did right. That shit was, because then programmers from Calgary Underground reached out to us to be like, we programmed this movie. And then it was just luck of like trying to find places we could screen it. And the more it screened, the more word of mouth got around and people started. But to answer if you're crazy or not, I think you're not crazy. Wow. Our experience, especially at like Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah, I think.
Like when we went to Austin was the most glaring to me because it was like 50-seat theaters that were sold out 2 nights in a row.
Wow.
And that was a lot of just random people.
Yeah.
Because it was
we don't know a soul in Austin.
It was really the first city where we were like, it's not our friends all coming out.
Right.
And it was just random people and not like weird film people.
Nobody weird. Everybody,
not a bunch of frail guys and cardigans. We're talking regular sized 6'2",
normal,
bulky, good, strong men were coming out.
These are the kind of people you want to like your stuff.
Right. Healthy people.
Yeah.
And they said, and people would just say like, they were like, you want to go see a movie at Drafthouse? And they looked at what's playing and that seemed interesting to them.
Yeah.
So that made me feel like everyone out there is like, people do want to see actually like funny looking good movies.
And I think we accidentally named the movie really well.
Yes. Is that an accident too?
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, what do we call it? Like, Dad and Stepdad. Because I think the idea maybe was, I think I pitched at one point, that's our boy.
That sounds like a sitcom.
But I think a big reference point for like the way another like tonally and aesthetically was I'm blanking out. Fredrick Wiseman movies. Wanted it to feel like an observational or like direct cinema.
Yeah.
And I was watching a lot of Fredrick Wiseman, and I'm like, well, he just names his movies Hospital or Zoo.
Yeah.
So
Central Park.
We should just name it Dad and Stepdad, because if this was being made by Fredrick Wiseman, he would just, that's what he would call it. It's the subject.
Brilliant.
But now I think that does so much work for us,
Yes.
where people immediately kind of know what it is. And that was another thing, is we didn't want to do any sort of like expositional setup. Like we didn't
Yeah.
wanted it to feel like these are real people, and you're kind of just like, you kind of figure out everything. Like in a Fredrick Wiseman or
Yep.
another big influence was this Emma King movie, A Married Couple, where you're just kind of like,
Oh yeah.
you just start
that
to
movie.
slowly get an idea of who these people are and how and what their relationship is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I responded to too, because I hate exposition. I hate, that whole baloney that we don't need. So I responded to that too. But are you guys now being called by Hollywood to come into meetings? You guys are out in LA for some reason. I don't know why you should be here in New York. But anyway, are you being called to meetings?
Not really. I mean, I did get a manager out of this, which was pretty key for me personally. I've never done anything like that before.
And I've had literally zero interest in it. No person, not even. I filmed more short films with my friends before this movie came out. And since it's come out, I'm not even
It's destroyed your
I'm not
career.
even acting in shorts. The things that I have going on, I do have some stuff going on, but it's all stuff that came up before this movie came out.
Well, let me tell you something. Buckle your seatbelts. Hollywood is going to be calling you. Mark my words.
I think we could get a sitcom on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we want to get. I want to get a commercial out of this. I want us to be the new Sonic guys.
There you go.
That would be the
I would
insane. That would be the insane. And when we were in Austin watching it on the big screen, we were like, it really is surreal to think like 4 years ago we were like had kind of just met and we were messing around in your living room for an afternoon, just being like, is this even funny? Like, what is this? And now we're watching the movie and then the perfect end to that whole arc is that we just become so known as like these commercial guys that we never work again. And this thing that was like super DIY and then was like taking off and then it just straight into lucrative, but no one ever works with us again.
I'm big fans now of you guys, and I mean that. Colin Burgess, Anthony Oberbeck, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Yeah.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.